Morning, good morning. I'm going to give you back host real quick, everybody. Make host. All right, good morning. My name is Andrea Sporsic. I'm the film commissioner for the state of Missouri. It's a Saturday and it's cloudy here. It's Oscar weekend. Are you guys excited about the Oscars? Happy Oscar weekend to everybody. It's been a weird year, another second weird Oscars, but that's what it is. Am I outgoing to you guys? No, okay, awesome. Well, I work with the Film Commission. Many of you know me. For those of you who don't, the Missouri Film Commission has a website, MoFilm.org, where you can find resources like a crew and company database. So if you are a crew member and have at least 3 credits, paid credits on a film or TV or any kind of project, video, motion media project, you can list yourself. And that's where people, when they come through town, are looking to hire, or people from across the state are looking to hire, that's where they look. So mofilm.org to list yourself as a crew member, or if you have a company, support company, you can put yourself there as well. We also have a location database for those of you looking for locations across the state. I welcome you to take a browse through there when you have some time, mofilm.org. My partner organization helping host these wonderful events is the Missouri Motion Media Association, and the president, Michelle Davidson, is here to tell you a little bit about MoMA before we get started.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. We are so excited to be partnering with the Missouri Film Office to offer educational opportunities, but our primary focus is advocating for the film industry in Missouri. So we want to attract productions to Missouri, and we want to keep productions in Missouri. So we obviously are an all volunteer board, and we just love the film business so much that we want to see Missouri be utilized and used as a backdrop for television, film, commercials, all of the above. And a big part of that is the incentive. So we've been so excited because we've taken a few steps in the legislative process. We're going to have Joni Tackett, who is our past president of MoMA and our head of our legislative committee, if she can give us an update on the current status of our bill, because things sometimes move a little bit slowly and then quickly. So we have a little update for you. Go ahead, Joni.
Okay, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Joni Tackett. I'm here in St. Louis, and I'm co-chair, actually, Michelle, of that legislative committee with Stephanie Scuppin from Kansas City. Just a little report on what's happening right now with our bill. I'm going to pull it up so I can be very exact. We had a standalone reinstate the film incentive bill. It was Senate Bill 367. There was a hearing earlier, I believe it was in February, and that bill was passed out of the Senate Economic Development Committee. And now it is on the informal the list it's on the informal calendar for the Senate right now, which means it still could be brought up to be heard on the Senate floor. It is now it's not a solo bill anymore. It's part of a larger omnibus bill, and it has a variety of other tax credit type incentive programs that are also attached to it. The wood energy tax credit, the meat processing facilities tax credit, ethanol fuel tax credit, rolling stock tax credit, agricultural production tax credit, biodiesel fuel tax credit, qualified research expenses, capital complex tax credit. So it really truly is part of a larger omnibus bill, and that could be helpful to us. Am I still here?
You're still here.
I see you.
Okay, great. Thank you, because I lost everything on my desktop when I went out of the bill. So anyway, there is still hope. There's still like 3 or 4 weeks left of the legislative session. So we're watching it closely to see if there's anything we need to do at any point, to jump in and support this bill making it through the legislative process. But yeah, anything could still happen, but it's possible that it will never be brought up again to be heard. And if that's the case, then of course we just regroup and we work again next year, but fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And one more thing about MoMA, if you can go to momaonline.com, that's a great way to become a member as an individual, or you can become a member with your production company. So momaonline.com. One last plug.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, I'm muted. Nope, I'm not. Okay. I think we have our presenter. I'm excited. This session is awesome. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to do this session for a long time in some way. And Justin and I had a pre-talk and I learned so much. So I'm excited to share with you guys what we've learned. Justin Benod, am I saying this right?
Begnaud.
Begnaud. I thought there was that G. You do say the G.
No, G, but no D. Begnaud.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming and visiting with us on a Saturday morning. And we're going to talk about everyone's favorite thing, finding financing, right? No, not everybody's favorite thing. I know it's the hard thing. It's the hard thing. And it's the hard thing, I think, to talk about. I've found even when I talk to producer friends, I mean, people seem, I don't know, they don't want to talk to you about these things. It's like a secret. It's like, you know, if you're not in the club in some ways, and also I think it's complicated because if you don't have a law degree, which next month is about law and entertainment attorneys, a little plug for that. I forgot to mention that at the top. But Justin, you came up with, I love this, kind of 10 ways to raise money for your film, 10 ways to finance your film. And you're going to talk us through that, which I'm excited about. But first, can you talk to us a little bit about how you got started in this crazy business?
Yeah, it's kind of been a long and windy, crazy road, but sure. Well, thanks again for, hosting and inviting me to do this. This is something I am passionate about, making movies. And you're right, like raising money is half the battle, right? Finding the right project, I guess, is the other half. So yeah, I grew up here in Kansas City. I left to go to Syracuse University in upstate New York. Actually, wanted to be a toy designer and, was interviewing at Fisher-Price and Hasbro and Mattel, and in between interviews, I needed a job. Right. So, I started picking up, small work, working, US Tennis Open, US Golf Open, just working in sports, working at the Olympics, and sort of kind of found a different little passion there. And then eventually interviewed with the History Channel right around Christmas time. We're saying, hey, we need someone that knows, the history of toys because it's Christmas and we're producing a TV show about it. And I was like, I have all this useless knowledge about, the founding of G.I. Joe and, what country Barbies are actually made and, the history of Monopoly. And I just had all this fun knowledge I put out in that interview. And they're like, you're hired. You're going to start tomorrow. Writer, researcher, History Channel, history of toys for Christmas special. So that sort of started it all. Started volunteering and writing grants for the Tribeca Film Institute and the Museum of Modern Art. They have a great old film library. And so I started writing grants for them and working there on the Saturdays, taking tickets. And just, it was a way to see like Italian films or French New Wave films. And, old German, film noir type films. I just really kind of fell in love with it. So I decided to pack my bags and go out to LA. Someone said, if you want to make cars, you go to Hollywood, or you go to Detroit. If you want to make movies, you go to Hollywood. So I followed that adage and went to UCLA Film School. And that's where I sort of started, a lot of my friends at the time or colleagues or peers, they were working at studios, following the creative path. And I learned early on that, man, if you could follow the money, you would always have a job. And so I decided to sort of, go that direction because I loved reading. I had a creative background anyway. So I didn't want to go work in creative at a studio. So I wanted to go, work for some financial institutions. And so all the knowledge or anything that we'll talk about today, lends itself, or I owe, I guess my lineage to that, or pay tribute to that. So there was a couple companies that I worked at. One was called Film Finances. They're a completion bond company. If you're making a movie that's over $2 million or more, and you've got tax credits, you've got foreign sales, and we'll talk about all these things later. Mezzanine financing, or if you have to pay guild residuals, or you have to put down deposits for, unions like SAG or IATSE or Teamsters deposits, you'll need a completion bond company. And so I worked there for 5 years, worked on 200 or 300 movies. It's a type of insurance, but we basically would guarantee that the movie would get made. So we would make sure we'd meet with all the directors, we make sure the budget and the schedule and the script all matched to make sure, everything sort of lined up. And we would go through their finance plan, and they had to have 100% of their financing in place before we would, put our stamp of approval and, bond the movie. And basically we were a go-between between a bank or a financier and the filmmakers. And so we would be on set making sure that they were actually making the movie. And if the bank was going to give them money, they were actually doing something with it. Bonds like this, performance bonds, surety bonds, they exist in different industries. Like in the construction business, they're called surety bonds. It makes sure that if you're going to build a hotel, that you're going to take that money and actually build the hotel. You're not going to skip the country and go to Bogota or something like that. So anyway, I worked there at Film Finances, great place, completion bonds. We can get into that a little bit later because that's an instrumental key to financing your movie if you're making a bigger movie. And then I went from there to Grosvenor Park. Grosvenor Park is a tax credit lender. So if you go film in a place like Georgia or Louisiana or New Mexico, there's about 27 different states in the United States, and there's about 32 countries around the world that offer some type of tax incentive, whereas they'll either give you a transferable tax credit for 20 or 30 cents on every dollar that you spend in that jurisdiction. They'll give it back to you in a form of a rebate about a year after you're done making your movie, or they'll give you a transferable tax credit that you can sell to a bigger corporation that needs it. Or you can have a financier cash flow and give you the money up front, but they usually don't give you 100% of the value of that tax credit note. They usually give you like a 15 or 20% discount on it. So just keep that in mind too. So anyway, Grosvenor Park, we would loan against tax credits. We would also provide loans against foreign sales, foreign pre-sales. I don't know if anybody has heard this term, but that's when you take your movie, if you just have, this is before you even start the movie, you take your script, you take your schedule, you take your budget, and you've got some cast. Like I'm just going to throw out, big names just for fun, like Brad Pitt, for example. And then you've got a big director like Martin Scorsese. This would never happen, but if you do, good for you. But if you got that package, you can actually take it to a foreign market, a market like Cannes would be a good example, or the Toronto film market, or the European film market, which just wrapped in Berlin. And there's filled with buyers and distributors from all over the world. And you have international sales agents taking your package and trying to sell territory by territory. So I've got my Brad Pitt, Martin Scorsese movie, and it's a dramedy. And I've got, you're hoping to get $25 million or $10 million for that movie. And so what you do is you go to a distributor, either a theatrical distributor or a streamer or a television network in Germany, and you say, hey, how much will you give me for this movie? And they'll give you like, a quarter of the value of the movie, and then you do that same thing to a buyer in the UK and Japan and Argentina, and you try and there's about 100 territories around the world. You can't sell all of them. Rarely does that happen. You try to sell maybe 30% of them. You try to get 30 of those countries to sort of buy in. And that's what a pre-sale is. And you get all that money, or you take those contracts to a bank and they'll loan that money to you. And that's where a completion bond comes into play, because banks don't know how to make movies. You get a completion bond, they know how to get movies made. And so they'll help, sort of back their credit worthiness will let you get that money from a bank. So you don't have to put your house on a mortgage or a second mortgage, get the bond company to help in that regard. So anyway, you don't have to go to a bank. You can go to a private lender. And that's who I worked for 2 years, worked on some really big movies. We would loan against those foreign sales contracts, or we would loan against those tax credit contracts. And I can get more into the weeds on that after this, if you guys have questions about that, because we were making, $40 million $50 million movies. And so that, foreign sales and tax credits are really important when you're at that level. Anyway, from there, I partnered with a group out of China. This is probably 2014. And, we were, again, they had private equity that they wanted to put into movies. We made a couple movies in Canada. And then I would partner up with a bank or a tax credit lender, and we would have full financing. And so that brings us to right around now, because after that, I started producing independently, lots of independent films. Some of them went to Sundance, some went to South by Southwest or Tribeca. Had one play at Telluride, which is a lot of fun. And then they went on to play in festivals around the world, and Asia, Europe, Australia, etc. And so that's kind of where I've been for a while. Last summer we had a remake of Children of the Corn, which was exciting. We were all supposed to go down there, but COVID hit, so some of us took a back seat and sort of produced from America, while we had to hire some local producers down in Australia because we couldn't be down there and the movie had to go on. It was actually one of 5 films being shot anywhere in the world at that time. Australia had a very, very low, they got ahead of the COVID and they shut their airports down and they didn't let anybody in. It's an island nation, very large island nation. So they sort of cut off the rest of the world. So they had a very low COVID rate. So things like TV shows or films were allowed to keep going as long as they practice certain protocols. But I was on Zooms just like this every day with the line producer and the director. Got to see how things were coming together remotely, kind of a remote video village, if you were, on the other side of the world. And we were trying to get that ready for Halloween, but the theaters were just not open. And so everybody kind of is aware of what's been going on in the last 18 months. So we have it on hold. We had it limited release in LA and New York just to kind of test some of the market. And we used that actually to change the movie a little bit in the end. And we're going to try and get it out into theaters this summer, or it might be a straight to stream. We're kind of testing the water to see what happens. But anyway, independent films is what I've been doing. Trying to bring movies. I'm back here in Kansas City now after being 10 plus years in New York, 10 plus years in LA. Been here for a few years. It's been really fun. I think there's a lot of great things happening here in the film community. Made one of my first movies here in Kansas City, so it's good to be back. Sorry for that long story, but I think it was important to kind of at least brush upon some of the things that we'll talk about today. And you guys, just so you have my background a little bit more, so you'll understand where I'm coming from. But anyway, that's awesome. That's kind of how I got here.
Awesome. And that was really great. And I think I met you between the last 2 jobs. So very cool, before you moved back. So I'm super happy to have you back in Missouri. So when we pre-talked and then you came up with this list of 10 ways to finance your film, I was so happy to see use your credit card, max out your credit card was not on the list. So I think I'm hopeful that
I've done that. And it took me about 10 years to pay it off. Don't do it.
I know, right? So let's jump in. Let's talk about, first, let's talk about a little bit the equity investors. Like, how do we talk through the basics of that for us?
Yeah. So if you got your movie, let's say it's $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million or more, you could just go find some investor, or you yourself might be, have that kind of cash lying around, or maybe your uncle has money, or your sister's a dentist and she wants to fully finance your movie. Not unheard of. That's what equity is. It's just a straight up investment for 100% of your movie. And usually for that, the investor gets half the rights. So if they write a check for $100,000 and your movie is $100,000 budget, that investor gets half the rights, and you as a filmmaker get the other half. And you can split that up between your actors. If you can't pay them enough, you can say, hey, you can have a chunk of the back end. That's what that means. You're giving a piece of the rights to each of those actors, or your DP, or you as a producer want to keep some for yourself, that sort of thing. So 100% of the financing gets you half of the rights. And that's equity. That's if you're just getting, an investor to give you all the money. That's the easiest way to finance your film, is finding an investor to give you all that kind of cash. But usually that's not the case. We have this list that we're going to circulate to everybody. But another way to sort of, I don't want to jump ahead, but equity also can come in the form of these, like you guys have heard of this before. It's been around for 10 years. Like the GoFundMes, the Indiegogos, the Kickstarters, crowdfunding. And so sometimes when you crowdfund, you just have to be careful. Some people are making that as a donation, and some people are actually making those as an investment, whether it's $100 or $1,000 or $10,000. Just make sure you're clear that when you get that money from them, and when you sign a contract with them, that it's clear that they're either giving you a donation, which means it's like a grant, they don't expect the money back, or it's an equity investment, whereas you have to give them that money back if your movie makes any kind of money, and what position they sit in. So there's different levels of positions that we can talk about, whether it's senior position, junior position, there's a mezzanine position. We can get into that later, but yeah, sorry to jump ahead, Andrea. Just equity, that's the easiest way to get your money made or get your film made, is you have an investor or a couple investors to put up 100% of the budget. That's what equity is.
All right. So what about if you're going out to pitch in multiple investors? Like, I know that you're not an attorney, and we're going to talk to attorneys next month, but what are some basic rules around soliciting investors?
Yeah. So what you do when you make a movie, it's an enterprise. You're starting a business. So you want to get an LLC started. Talk to your tax accountant or a tax attorney, because some might advise you not to start an LLC. They might ask you to start an S Corp. In any case, you're starting a business. So you have the rights to the film, or maybe you've got a book, or there's a script or a book that you want to turn into a script, or it's a cool video game that you want to try and get the rights to and turn into a script or a screenplay. You want to tie all that stuff to an entity. And so you want to create a single purpose entity, or an LLC, or a S Corp, depending on what state you live in and what your tax situation is. So I can't advise that right now, but you create this entity. We'll just say LLC for the time being. And you're going to be selling shares in that LLC. And so when you, and just know that you're going to have to report that. And each of your investors are going to have to report that every year. And there's what are called Schedule K1s, because when you sell a share in your LLC, those investors now are beholden to what makes up that LLC. And so I think we'll get into this next week with a lawyer, but just know when you sell your investor on your film, or multiple investors, you're selling shares of your LLC, and each one of those shares has a value. And that will be based on how much they put into the movie, how well the movie does. If it does sell, they get a certain percentage back, usually with interest as well. So keep those things in mind. But that's key in establishing your business, establishing your film. That's usually the first step, is setting up that single purpose entity.
Great, cool. So, and you've touched on, and I know you don't want to go. Are there rules about how many people you can talk to? And I mean, it varies by state, and there are federal regulations.
Yeah. So again, this will be something that would be really important for the attorney next week. A lot of states have what are called usury laws. That's how much percentage they can charge on the money they loan to you. States like Delaware and North Dakota, that's where if anybody has a credit card, I'm sure you do, you usually get your statements and it says from North Dakota or from Delaware. They don't have usury laws, so they can charge 800% on the $100 they give you if they want to, but most states do. Kansas and Missouri do. And if they loan you that money, they can only charge you 18% or 20% on that money. Just double check what the state is. Your tax accountant or tax attorney or an entertainment lawyer will understand what usury laws are. The reason I bring that up is because every state also has limits on how many investors you're allowed to go approach. Sometimes it's a 20-person max. It depends on what your budget size is, and in the business world, it's what your market cap is before you get turned into a public company selling millions of shares of your company. You usually have a cap that you can go to or not go to. The other thing to do is what is defined by the federal government as who is an investor. You don't want to be taking money for people that don't have a lot of money. That the government protects those kinds of people. It makes it look like that you're taking advantage of them. So they qualify an investor as a high net worth individual. A high net worth individual, I think as of last year, again, don't quote me because it was a COVID year, so that might have changed. A high net worth individual is anybody that makes $250,000 or more, or has $1 million worth of assets. So if you're going to be going out to your aunt who's a dentist, or your uncle who's retired and made a lot of money in the tech industry or something, just make sure that they have those qualifications before you ask them to invest in your movie. Now, anybody's allowed to do anything they want, but there are rules and regulations to protect people that don't have it, but they really want to help you. So just make sure that you're not in a position where it looks like in the SEC or the federal government side that you're taking advantage of somebody. So, the big thing here, and what the lawyers should talk about next week, is disclaimers. When you're talking to investors, or you're talking to friends and family, or even when you put these, and I think Indiegogo and Kickstarter, Seed and Spark, a GoFundMe, they have these disclaimers for anybody on there already that says when you're, and you should have this too in your materials. The very first page is, by investing in this movie, you will lose it. You don't want to take money from people that can't lose that money, because 9 times out of 10, when you're making a movie like this, you could very well lose that money. There's no guarantees. Just like when you're putting money into the stock market, it can go up, it can go down, you can lose everything. So that's very, very important that you are starting your conversation with any investor with that key piece of information. Like, do you have this money? Is it expungible? Can you lose it? Because you probably will. The goal is for us filmmakers is to make sure that they don't, and put the best product out there and get it on the shelves at Walmart next to George Clooney's movie. But we're not all so fortunate, and so it's a battle out there. And right now we're in a period where it's a good market for filmmakers, because there's so many streamers and there's so many places to put these movies. So there's a lot of buyers, not enough product, because everybody's been locked up for the last year. So it's a good market, good timing to be in the movie business, making movies, in the manufacturing business, because there's not a lot of supply and there's a huge demand, because everybody's locked home watching Netflix and Amazon and Vudu and whatnot. So it's a good time to do all this. But I say that with fair warning. You have to put a disclaimer in any of your documents, and you have to make sure when you sit down with an investor that they understand that you're not obligated to. It's not a loan unless you structure it that way. But if they're investing in your movie, it's an investment, and they can lose the money. So that's just something that everybody has to be clear. And the lawyer, I'll get into the details on how you want to say that and what kind of language that needs to be in there. But I just want to be clear with everybody on that before we move forward.
Sure. And I think not as equally important. I mean, you don't want to go to jail, yes, but also these kinds of things can hang you up when you try to get a distribution deal. And I mean, if you went to all this trouble to make the movie and then you can't sell it because of these kinds of issues, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, having a lawyer or a tax attorney really is imperative. I know you don't want to pay them, and it's like, oh, I can do this a lot on my own, but you really want them there, because if you don't have buttoned up contracts, you just have handshake agreements. Don't accept any money from anybody without having an agreement in place that spells out that an attorney that's licensed in that state or that jurisdiction has written out for you, because that person, that investor, could come back and sue you, sue your LLC. There'll be a lien against your film. And if if a studio or distributor like Netflix or somebody wants to buy your film, they're going to say, hey, there's a lien. There's someone that you didn't have a proper contract with, and they want to sue you, and we're not going to touch your movie now until you get that resolved. So the more prepared you are and the better paperwork you have up front is the better. And don't try to do it as a producer. There's lots of pocketbooks, books from Barnes and Noble or on Amazon on like how to write your own contracts and all that stuff. Don't look at them. I mean, it's important as a producer to know what they say and what the language means. So buy those books by all means and read them and know them, but do not try to copy them. Don't try to do them yourself. It's worth the money to go out and get a real lawyer who knows what they're doing.
Awesome. So let's move to the next category. And you did touch on this a little bit, pre-sales and license sales ahead of time. And this will probably engage sales agents and producers reps at some point at the beginning.
Yeah. So equity was the first thing. Now I've got, maybe I only have half my budget in place. So now I want to maybe try and start selling off the rights. And this is what I talked about a little bit earlier. If you don't have your movie made, you actually can pre-sell your movie before it's made at all. And like I said, there's 4 big markets every year. There's like 1 per quarter. There's the European film market. Don't worry, you don't need to go to Europe to do this, but you can hire an international sales agent. There's a lot based in New York. Most of them are in LA. There's a handful of them over in Europe. There's some in Chicago and other film markets that are popping up. They're all friendly. They get paid if they can help pre-sell your movie, and they're basically just taking the script and the budget. And in that scenario I used with Brad Pitt and Martin Scorsese, they just like maybe have a little headshot of them, and they say, this is this cool, dramedy that we're trying to sell with these guys. And, depending on who it is and who your actor is and what type of movie, a lot of people will come up and say, hey, I'll buy your movie, and they'll give you 100,000 or 200,000 or however, maybe it's only 10,000. Just depends on who's selling and what kind of movie it is and the appetite of the market. But you're right. You're basically making micro distribution agreements with individual territories around the world. That's what the international sales agent will do for you. That's what the international sales model is you're selling the rights before you make your movie to as many people as possible. And usually you can raise, even on big movies, you can raise about 40% of your movie that way, 40% of your budget. That's about right. And then also, here's the other fun thing. If you're able to sell about 40% of the value of your budget from international pre-sales, the unsold territories, the place you didn't get to, like the US, you want to sell the US last. The USA, Canada, maybe some other English-speaking territories, you just quite didn't get the right number you thought was good. Those unsold territories have value, and that's what's called mezzanine financing or gap financing. Makes up the gap between what you did sell and what you have left to sell. So gap financing is a good thing. So between the 40% of your budget that you did pre-sell and then the rest of the territories that you did not sell, that is about 20% of your budget usually, and that's 60% of your budget just by selling off the rights, not from selling off the US. I'm talking about international rights that you're selling. And usually at a $500,000 budget level or $250,000 budget level, that's really tough to do because chances are you're not getting a big enough actor that really is recognizable or marketable internationally. This international sales model really applies to movies that are $1 million or $2 million or higher. I'm not saying for your $500,000 movie you can't go get a big name actor because like being here in Kansas City, you might be able to get Paul Rudd. You might be able to get Rob Riggle. Just because you know him and have a relationship to him doesn't mean you can't go get him. And he might like the script, and he might like you, and he might want to do the movie, and you just defer some of his fees because you can't pay it, and he only needs to work for a week, and maybe you cover his travel, and it's a pleasant experience for him. So maybe you can make a movie with a big name actor like that. I suggest trying for it. You never know. But anyway, selling off the rights, that's what that means. You certainly can sell the rights to a domestic distributor. SVOD, subscription video on demand, that's a real popular thing right now. Obviously everybody knows what Netflix and Amazon and Vudu, which is what Walmart used to sell more movies than any other video store on the planet. They were massive. They still do sell quite a bit of DVDs. But now Walmart was smart and now they sell movies digitally, and that's called Vudu. There's Tubi and Tuvi and Fudu. There's over 400 of these SVODs. I can send a more comprehensive list later. But Apple Plus and Amazon, I mean, you've heard of most of them in the first tier, and then there's a whole second and third tier. But they will pay pretty good money, $100,000, $200,000, depending on what your movie is. Some like to buy for the world. Just be careful if you've already sold some of the world in that pre-sales model that we talked about. You might not be able to sell the SVOD rights to somebody that wants the world. Netflix buys for the world. So if you've done pre-sales and then you're trying to sell it to Netflix, they're going to say thanks, but no thanks. Amazon is okay. Amazon usually just buys for the US. But I'm just giving some broad stroke examples of when you do sell your rights, just know it takes the world rights off the table because the world rights aren't available anymore. And you can certainly go directly to a studio if you want. You can certainly go directly to SVOD or a streamer if you got those relationships. But I think I've got this in here, but one of the best ways to do this, to sell your movie, So we talked about selling your movie before. Let's talk about, hey, I actually put it on credit cards and got my aunt who's a dentist and got my rich uncle, and they put all the money in. I got my movie. The best way to sell your film, and if it's not through a private screening, is to get it into festivals. And I think I have that in here somewhere. Because when you get it into a film festival, it's saying to the rest of the world, particularly buyers or these SVOD players, that you've got a good movie because somebody else, saw it and said this would be good. I want this to be on our lineup for the film festival. Obviously, Sundance is at the top of that list here in the U.S. Tribeca, Seattle, Telluride, South by Southwest. There's a list of like sort of the big 10 that you want to try and get it into, because that's where all the buyers go. That's where Netflix goes. That's where Amazon goes. To some extent, Vudu goes there. Fubo TV is another one that's going. That Roku's actually getting into the acquisition game. Everybody has a Roku controller or a Roku player at their home now. Roku is actually getting into original content. They're starting off with acquisitions. So they're going to Sundance and Telluride and Toronto and Tribeca and South by Southwest. They're buying movies, which is great. So if you can get your movie, doesn't matter what your budget is, 100,000, 50,000, 5 million, 1 million, whatever but don't worry about the budget. If it's good and it gets into one of those festivals, you're going to attract the attention of either agents or buyers or distributors or streamers. And so that's selling your rights also. And some might just buy the rights to the US. Some might buy for all English speaking territories. So UK, Canada, US, other parts of Europe would be considered, Australia, South Africa. Those are all English speaking territories that buy. New Zealand that buy, a lot of movies, because chances are your movie will be in English. And so just know that too, like there's two types of rights. There's the rights at the beginning before you even make your movie, and you can pre-sell the rights before your movie gets made. And then there's selling your rights after your movie gets made. And your best chances of doing that is at a film festival.
Awesome. And in June, we're going to talk about distribution and maybe have a sales agent if I can.
Oh, great.
Right
That's
one.
good.
So stay tuned. More on distribution coming. So you touched on this one too, and this one is hard for me to talk about, but the soft money incentives. So you've got the global world of incentives. So
so there are tax incentives. We call it soft money, but they're really tax credits or tax incentives. I think I said 27 states have a proper tax credit or tax incentive. 32 or 35 countries around the world have some kind of tax incentive. And it's not like they're just waiving the taxes when you go buy gasoline or on hotel rooms. It's usually run by the Economic Development Department or the state's Department of the Treasury. And what they're doing is they're trying to generate business, and they want your business to come to Georgia or to Louisiana or New Mexico. They have, 3 of the healthiest tax incentive programs. And so when you go there, you register with the state, you tell them you're coming there, you're going to be filming, you're going to be spending this much money. You usually share your budget with them. And they go through and they say, okay, wow, you're going to be spending, there's usually a limit. Like you can't go make your $200,000 movie in Louisiana because it's below their max or their minimum. Usually in places like Chicago, if you have a TV commercial, Louisiana has something fun. If you have a live concert like Metallica or Garth Brooks or Cirque du Soleil, if you go build your set in Louisiana and you do your rehearsals there for 6 months, they actually give you money because you're putting people to work, and you're spending money on the hotels, spending money on cars, you're using materials, you're using vendors, and you're putting people to work. And that's really what this is all about. And so those kinds of things exist for filmmakers as well. So I can go to Louisiana or New Mexico. I know Missouri is trying to do this too, so I'm not trying to leave Missouri out, but it's not quite there yet. But Louisiana, Georgia, New York, California to some extent, New Mexico, those are some of the more popular ones. Ohio has a good one, Pennsylvania. What happens is you go there, you submit your budget, they go through it with you about what classifies as a qualified spend. And that just means like, I'm not using a crew from out of state to go build sets for my movie. I'm actually hiring a crew within the state to build my sets. I'm using local crew for hair, makeup, grip, lighting, electric, hiring a local DP, maybe my director's from there, but they usually go through everything and assign a number. And at the end of the day, you can get about 20 or 30 cents on the dollar. For every dollar you spend, the state of Louisiana in this instance is going to give me 20 cents back for every dollar I spend in there. So that's a great incentive. Usually though, if you want that money now, because it's like, great, I'm going to get all that money back, but it could take 2 years. It could take 6 months, but my movie's going to be done by that time. So enter like an intermediary or a factoring company or a tax credit lender. This is something else that's very, very familiar to people in the business world, because if you're building a building and this, Kansas City gives you a tax incentive to build some skyscraper downtown, usually that company wants that money now. And so they have an intermediary or a company that will come in, a financier to tax cash flow that tax credit. In the film business, same exact thing. I worked for one, I was one for a while. And so what we would do is we would look at that letter of approval from the state of Louisiana. We would usually have an outside accountant go through it just to make sure the numbers all looked and made good, get it from a third party, just to have a third party opinion. And then we would say, okay, wow, on your $1 million movie, looks like the state of Louisiana is going to give you, $200,000 back but in 6 months, but you need the money now. So we'll give you $150,000 against that 200,000, because I will now take the risk and wait 6 months or 2 years to get that money directly back from the state of Louisiana. That's how it works. You can broker it. You can try and get other people to give you more money if you think you can do a better job, but just be careful. There's usually hidden fees and broker fees, and someone made the introduction, so there's a finder fee. There's all kinds of things in there you have to factor in. But just know, if a state gives you a transferable tax credit or gives you a rebate for your tax credit, just know that you're usually not going to have the full value of that. So when you're putting your finance plan together, you have to discount that number down quite a bit, 15% usually, or 20% of the value of it. That's what it means. I can get into a little bit more detail if someone has more questions about it. I wanted to keep it, there's a lot to get through, so I wanted to sort of keep it somewhat
this is good.
surface.
You're doing great. So the next one you did touch on, and we'll talk a little bit more, is about crowdfunding and how that whole thing works. And you did make the difference that those setup systems are more donation based than investor based.
Yeah. So crowdfunding is something else that sort of allows filmmakers to raise money outside of the usual scope of fundraising. I talked about earlier. The Jobs Act, created by the Obama administration, allows now anybody to be an investor, but at certain levels. So, my, sister's a dentist. She makes money. She has, and again, I'm just throwing this out, she's not really a dentist, but she's a dentist. She's got a healthy business. She's classified as a high net worth individual. So I can take her money at a certain level. My rich uncle who's retired, he's a high net worth individual, makes more than $250,000 a year, has $1 million in assets. I can take, in the SEC eyes, what I said earlier, I can take their money. There are things like Section 181 and the Jobs Act, and which allow Indiegogo, GoFundMe, Kickstarter, Seed and Spark to operate and take your money as an investment at smaller levels. So no longer can obviously, if someone on GoFundMe wants to give you $1 million, sure, that's fine. You want to do a side contract, because usually what GoFundMe has isn't going to hold up in a lot of courts at that level. So you just want to make sure you're talking to your tax accountant or your tax attorney or an entertainment lawyer when you're getting large sums of money through these types of crowdfunding platforms. But if someone gives you $10 or $100 through GoFundMe, it's fine. I know they're not a high net worth individual, but the Jobs Act says that they can invest in your movie at a certain level. So they shouldn't be giving you $50,000 through that crowdfunding source. They should only be giving you like anything. It's usually like under $5,000 or under $1,000. They're fine. They're free and clear, and they don't have to worry about it. And you shouldn't have to worry about it either, because there is language in it that sort of protects you at small chunks of money. But just know that, again, you got to be giving them something in return. You're either giving them a share of your movie because they're investing into it, or you're giving them like a T-shirt or a DVD copy when the movie's done. So just make sure it's called quid pro quo. They give you something like money and they're getting something in return. So all that language is usually in the Indiegogo, Kickstarter, GoFundMe website. Just make sure you're reading it, understand it, have an attorney give you a second opinion about it. So that's the crowdfunding. I've done this successfully lots of times. You can hire a crowdfunding producer that knows how to market your movie and get the message out there. A lot of people will put like little 1-minute videos, or they'll go shoot a scene so you can see what it looks like, or they'll have like a lookbook or a deck that you put it all on there. If you've not done it before, it's really straightforward, but usually it makes sense to hire a producer, a crowdfunding producer, somebody who has done this before. Usually you can either pay them or you can pay them compensation based on how much money they help raise for you, but it's worth it. It definitely works. There's a whole marketing scheme behind it, and you got to really focus on it. And these types of people, I've used them before. They're great. But I've raised anywhere from $60,000 to close to $5 million on these types of platforms. Super Troopers 2 was a good example. We raised, I think, $3 or $4 million just on that alone. And then we had someone match it at the end there. So anyway, those are all kinds of great examples.
That one made all the news. Like that was like one of the biggest
Yeah.
movies to be crowdfunded, I think, right? Cool. Deferred costs. You talked about that, but how can that help?
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about, I have $100,000, right? That's all I have for my budget. It's all sorry, I was muted by somebody. So yeah, I have $100,000 to spend. That's my budget, but I want Rob Riggle or I want Paul Rudd. I really want them badly. And I want to be able to pay my crew, but I can't because this is just all we have. So deferring your fees is the way to do this. Now, when you're working with SAG actors or you're working with union crews from IATSE, IATSE, International Stage and Theatrical Alliance, if you're working with union crews, you can't defer fees. If you're working on any kind of union type project, even with SAG actors, they won't allow you to do it. But SAG is great. SAG-AFTRA is now what it's called. They're helpful. They have tremendous resources. You can do what's called, they have different tiers. So a movie that's under, between 2 and 5 million, movies that are over 5, movies over 10, that dictates how much you can pay your actors. And it also is tied to residuals. That's how much money you have to pay them later after your movie is released. They also have, I'm blanking on the term, but they have movies that you can make for under $1 million or even under 500,000, and you can pay actors like $100 a day. Don't quote me on the numbers. It's all on SAG-AFTRA's website. Definitely go double check it. It might have changed in the last year and a half. Just know that that's there to help new, younger filmmakers that don't have a lot of money to go make a big 5 or 10 or 20 or $100 million movie. So SAG-AFTRA is really helpful and
We are going
resourceful.
to break in for a second. We are going to do we're going to do a session with Maureen O'Brien, who's the SAG-AFTRA rep for our region in September. So in September, we're going to talk about SAG contracts specifically and working with them for producers to work with them. So
yeah, that's great. So she'll give you the guidelines on, what budget level you're working at and what's the minimum you'll have to pay each of your actors. But sometimes if it's a non-union crew, you want to try and pay everybody, right? And what we do sometimes is we do a most favored nation. So I'll pay my DP $100 a day, but my hair and makeup will get the same $100 a day. You're paying everybody the same amount of money every single day that they're working. But my DP is like, hey, I've made some bigger movies. I'll take the $100 a day because I want to work and I believe in the movie. But if my agent calls, we're probably, we want to defer maybe some of the fees. So what they become now is they're shifting their money to the backside of the movie. But just also know, by doing that, by deferring your fees to any crew member or actors, again, this is going to be regulated by SAG and AFTRA. But if you defer fees for anybody that works in your movie, usually producers, because there isn't a guild to protect producers, not yet at least. So usually producers will work for free and like push their money to the back. You're imploding your budget. You're actually making your budget bigger. You're adding to the pool of investors, because now anybody that deferred their fees is now getting a piece of that back end. So just make sure that if you are deferring fees, it is a way to keep your budget small. And if you have the money you think to make your movie over 18 days or 20 days, or could be 40 days if you can pull it off. If you have the money and you want to make the movie, but everybody's like, well, I should get paid more, and you have these agreements with them, sometimes they get you can allow to defer the fees. Again, mostly it's the producers that say, I'll take $500 now, produce your movie, but I want to defer $10,000 to the end of the movie. And if by chance the movie gets sold, I'm obligated to get that money back. But remember, you just made your budget bigger. You just made, all your investors sit side by side with now that deferred person, whoever that is. So that can get complicated also. It should be in a contract with any of your crew members that you are going to try and do that with, especially with your producers. Just know that it's not as easy as it sounds. You can't just kick the fees to later. You are increasing your budget and you are diluting the pool of investor money. So just know that that is a way to structure your movie and your financing, but there are implications. So just be careful of that.
Awesome. Thank you. This next area I get a lot of questions about and don't really understand it much myself. So product placement and branding opportunities within the film that you can pre-sell for money.
Yeah, let's say this Martin Scorsese, Brad Pitt movie is a baseball movie. And so now I want to get Louisville Slugger to donate bats. Because usually I have to hire a props person or a prop master to go out and buy that Louisville Slugger bat. But now Louisville Slugger is going to donate a bunch of bats to me. So that's great. So now I just save money in my budget line item and my props line item by getting a donation. But you want to make sure that, that's properly contracted too, because, they might want to have a credit at the end of the movie, or they want to have some kind of signage in there. Or they want that shot of that Louisville Slugger bat with their logo on it. So just make sure when you do take gifts in kind like that, or when you take some kind of product placement like that, like the Rawlings glove, or, if someone wants to drink Gatorade in the dugout in your baseball movie with Brad Pitt, or, maybe you get Nike shoes donated to you from Nike, the cleats that everybody wears. Just make sure that, Nike is really clear, or you are really clear on what Nike is giving you. Like a lot of times they're going to give you the uniforms and maybe the cleats, but they also want to make sure they get that specific shot with the Nike logo next to Brad Pitt's face, because that's like the money shot. That's what they want. And they want to be properly credited at the end. So there are companies, and again, I can follow up with you, Andrea, later. There are branded entertainment companies. I think one is actually called Branded Entertainment, that are out there that you can hire, and they have relationships with, automakers, food and stylist companies, apparel companies, like Hugo Boss. You want Brad Pitt in a Hugo Boss suit. You save money from your budget because now you have to go get that wardrobe. And Hugo Boss is going to donate a bunch of suits so Brad Pitt can wear them. And so those are gifts in kind. That's product placement. But also know that, they're going to expect something in return for that. They don't want money in the back end. They just want to make sure their logo is apparent. But they're going to ask, it's not that easy. Also, they're also going to want, one of the key things is like knowing who your audience is and knowing what platform you're going to try and sell this movie, because they want to know how many eyeballs. So then they see it as a form of advertisement. So if Nike's on like during the Super Bowl, obviously they paid $1 billion for that or something. I'm joking, but you know what I mean? Like they know how many eyeballs are watching the Super Bowl when they put that Nike commercial up. So same thing with your movie. Your movie is like a program that's going to be programmed at a festival or on a streamer or in movie theaters. And so Nike sees that as an opportunity for them to advertise through your movie. And they want to know how many eyeballs it is and what age group they're tailoring this to. If this is a Martin Scorsese, Brad Pitt movie and it's going to be rated G because now we just turned it into a family friendly, baseball comedy that's going to appeal to, kids and tweens, then that's a different audience than if it's an older, more adult type comedy about baseball. So just keep those things in mind when you do that. Also be careful. Don't put a bunch of stuff with logos in your movie thinking that afterwards you can go to Nike and say, hey, I made this baseball movie and I got Nike logos all over it. Can you give us money, or can we have a write-off from you? That doesn't work that way. You'll get in lots of trouble. They will actually shut your movie down. They will not let you sell it to a distributor or anything like that. So you want to do this ahead of time and want to make sure it's clear, and you want to have signed contracts, because when you do go to a distributor, just like having investor contracts in place, a distributor or a streamer or anybody that's going to help exploit your film is going to ask to see that contract. Oh, you got Nike and you got Rawlings and Louisville Slugger in your baseball movie? Let me see those contracts. We make sure that they're not going to sue us for inappropriately exploiting our products in your movie. So that is a way to raise money for your film. Or what you're really doing is subtracting your line item that you had set aside to go buy products or uniforms or baseball bats or gloves. You're subtracting that from your budget and replacing it with product that was given to you for not for free, but it's called a gift in kind or a product placement arrangement. So there's some watch outs there.
And at some level, there sometimes is some cash for that on bigger
That's
movies
right.
or known actors and stuff, right?
That's right. So sometimes like having Nike give you uniforms and Nike, cleats, but if Brad Pitt's in your movie, again, I'm just using as a wild example, Nike will actually say, whoa, Brad Pitt's going to be doing that. And I could see that on the poster and I could see that in the movie, and it's going to have this wide release. Here's a couple $1 million for doing that too. Like, so they'll pay for that sometimes if you get the right product and you get the right, partner in that sense. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I had no idea there was a movie. I won't tell you what it is, and it had a beer sponsor. I won't tell you what it is. It wasn't St. Louis beer, but I had no idea, and it became a big fight between like the director and the producer because every time the actor drank the kind of beer, it was like 25 grand, and they were like supposed to be 6, and the director cut 2 of them, and the producer was like, "What are you talking about? That's $50,000." So I had no idea that it was that. But and it does get fuzzy with the content line too, because what if that product placement person wants you to change your content for that to be involved? That's a hairy line too. So
yeah, be careful of those things when they start to tell you or dictate what you can and can't say, and how many times you want to say that beer, or how many times you want Brad Pitt swinging that Louisville Slugger bat. Like, they start dictating the creative, and I think that's just a watch out. If you're okay with that, fine, but make sure your producer and your director are aligned. You want to always protect the creative integrity of your film, but you got to keep the camera rolling, right? So you need that money. You got to make sure that's just one of those contract things. Make sure it's always there. Make sure you know what it is. Make sure everybody on the creative side knows what the contract language says, so that you have to say that word 6 times. You got to have that shot in the movie with the Nike logo 4 times, for it to all work. Because otherwise, you're breaking the contract, and you can be liable for that. So just know that's great. Watch out.
awesome. Which leads to the next in-kind services, which can be broader than just product placement.
Yeah. So again, if I got cameras, I want to use the latest, Ari, Alexa, Flex 4, what have you, camera in my movie. Sometimes there are grants. If it's your first film, or you're a minority filmmaker, or you're a female filmmaker, there are camera rental shops in Hollywood and in New York, and I think maybe even here too, camera rental places everywhere that will loan you their equipment, free of charge, but they just want to be properly, credited for it, especially if they're not being used. And that they see that as a grant or an in-kind service. Some post-production companies will do this type of thing as well. Bring your movie in for editing, color correction, sound mixing. We'll give it to you as a discounted rate, because we know we believe in the movie and we want to just help you. Sometimes another quid pro quo scenario is we'll give you these services for free, but we want a piece of the back end. So they just, by a trade-off, they become an investor in your movie now without having putting up money, but they gave you some in-kind services up front, which is money for them, but then they expect a back end percentage or a back end placement in your waterfall. So just be careful of those kinds of things. But those are some great examples. Caterers is another one. I've been to a lot of small towns, found out what the good restaurants were, approached the owner, said, "Hey, do you want to provide catering for us for the day?" So sometimes they'll just do it for free because they see it as people talking about this restaurant and how great it is, and to them, word of mouth is how they survive anyway. So they'll just buy everybody lunch for a day just for coming into the restaurant, or they'll cook it and bring it to set. So that's a form of in-kind services. Maybe they want to do it for all 15 days or 30 days that you're shooting. Now they're going to start to lose money on that. So maybe they won't do that, but maybe they'll give you a discount, but that's an in-kind service. We talked about equipment rentals. Sometimes locations will do that. Like if it's a little coffee shop and they can afford to close down for a day, or you're getting in there before they open or after, they see it as a form of advertisement also, because again, you're going to be featuring their little coffee shop in a movie. So that's a in-kind service. That's sort of how that's defined. Some of it is free and it is in kind. Some is not. Some is like, we'll give it to you for free, but we'll defer what you would pay us. Let's say it was $10,000 a day or $1,000 a day. You don't have to pay me now. I want a piece of the back end, or you can defer that location fee to the back end of the movie. That's another form of deferring the fees. Locations will do that sometimes. Or restaurants will do that for catering. Sometimes they'll defer those fees that you owe them till later. So those are other like ways of like flexing your budget, trying to find ways to be creative with it. Take money out, put it somewhere else, get in-kind services, defer a fee for a location, or just convince them that, they're going to be, broadly advertised in film festivals all over the country, in exchange for letting us use your coffee shop for the day.
Awesome. Great. We're blowing through these. Now the next category is a good one. So grants, money that you can get that you don't have to pay back. They're not investors, but grants, and they're not donations. It's different.
Yeah, so there's so many grants out there, so many grants for the arts. Making a movie, you're an artist. So there are lots of arts type grants out there. You're not doing a mural or a painting, you are doing motion arts, right? So Ford Foundation is a big one. Alfred P. Sloan Science Grant, those are sort of the big ones. There's the MacArthur Foundation. They give money to filmmakers. There's a lot that are targeted towards minorities or female filmmakers. Game Changers, one of them. Chicken and the Egg is a good one for female filmmakers. If you're a first-time filmmaker, Cine Reach is a great one. They're based out of New York, a great organization. A lot of film societies have them. San Francisco Film Society, the Austin Film Society. There's Women in Film, Film Independent. There's lists of like, you can just Google film grants and 1,000 of these will come up. Some are $500. Some they work with like a Panavision. They'll give you cameras. That could be a form of a grant. Some are like cash in hand that they'll give to you up front. Some they'll want to wait to see the movie before they'll give it to you. But just like Andrea said, grants are money that you don't have to pay back. Those are money that you get. You hold on to it. You use it how you need to. Now you have to report to them because they are 501c3 organizations. They got to report to keep their status. They have to report all the money that they give out, and your name and your movie that they gave that grant to is part of that reporting. So you also have to report to them. And many times that LLC that you created that we talked about at the very beginning has to report those grants that they received from a charitable institution or from a foundation or a 501c3 organization. So just keep in mind, it's not free money and you don't have to ever tell anybody about it ever again. You actually do for the life of your LLC, the life of your movie. So plan on 2-3 years of reporting that grant money. And grants are great. I've gotten $100,000 before from the Ford Foundation. I've gotten $2,500 from Sundance. I worked with a female director once, and she got a $10,000 grant from Chicken and the Egg, and that was a personal grant. She didn't have to use that in the movie, but she did. It was more for supporting her, paying rent, use it how she saw fit, but she wanted to put it back in towards the movie, so that was nice. So there's lots of different grants out there. It is more or less free money. But just know you're going to have to report those kinds of things on your taxes, LLC taxes. And so just know it's not take the money and run. You got to actually be responsible with it. But it's a great way to get money for your movie. Absolutely. And it's not just one grant per film. Like you can probably get 10 grants if you really are good with it and savvy with it. So I would apply to all of them no matter what, for sure.
Very cool. Fiscal sponsorship, another way to kind of get donations. You want to talk about that?
So some investors, they might not want to invest. Like you had that conversation with them up front. You got your rich uncle, and he's saying, "Hey, I don't want to just give you this money. If you can't guarantee I'm not going to get it back, like what's the benefit for me?" So don't let anybody say no to you, because there's always another way to take someone's money, and that's through the form of a charitable contribution. Like I said about grants, you're an artist, you're making a movie. And so, and that's a form of art. So one of those things that you can do is accept somebody's money as a form of a charitable organization or a charitable donation. And you're not a 501c3. The LLC that you created is a for-profit, for-profit business entity. So you can't just take somebody's money and say it's a charity. And so what you can do is you can partner with what's called a fiscal sponsor. And those are, usually you're going to like either a museum or a film institution, like San Francisco Film Society is a great example. IFP, which just changed their name to the Gotham. They're like a filmmaker friendly institution that's based in Brooklyn, I think, in New York City. There's a bunch of these. There's another list of them. And what they do is your investor that now doesn't want to give you cash for a piece of your movie is just going to make a charitable contribution to the arts. And so they write a check. It gets donated to Film Independent, as an example. Film Independent takes their money because they're a 501c charitable organization. They're allowed to take your money, and then they turn around, they give you a grant for the same amount. I think they take like a 3 or 5% fee for handling that transaction. But now that investor gets that write-off, and it might not be 100% write-off when you donate money or you go to an auction, or like if your kids have a school and they have a fundraiser and you write a check for anything, you usually get that write-off for 100%, $100 for whatever, a coffee mug or something, your kids charitable fundraiser. It's like anywhere from 75 to 87% of a write-off. Each organization will have a certain standards on like how much you can write off for that. But regardless, what's happening is you're taking somebody's money. It's a charitable contribution. They are no longer entitled to get any money back. They're now supporting the arts through their contribution. It's a donation now, and it gets funneled through a fiscal sponsor like Film Independent. A lot of organizations will do this. They turn around and send you a check in the form of a grant. And again, just double check with those organizations what those fees are for doing that. Some can be 2%, some can be 5%. I've seen some for 8%. So just double check it. You can compare them too. Like I think there was Heart to Heart, Film Independent, IFP, and San Francisco Film Society. For one of my movies we were looking at, and we had $100,000 we needed to be converted into charitable contributions. And we looked at the fees, and one was 2%, one was 3%, one was 6%. Obviously, we were going to go with the 2%, but there was a catch. They had all these other fees in the fine print that they were going to collect, and they weren't going to give us the money right away. They were going to spread it out over quarters. So like we took that one off the table, and we ended up going with the one that I think was in the middle. It was like 5% or 4%. So just read all the fine print too, because it's not that easy. It's not as easy as calling them and saying, hey, I got to funnel this money through you so I get a grant. They get so many, they're only allowed so many. So you have to apply to get a fiscal sponsor many times. So get in on that early. You always want to have an investor who's going to tell you, no, I don't want to give you this money because it's a bad investment. I want to lose my money. You want to say, hey, but there's another way you can contribute, and it could be a tax write-off for you. We have a fiscal sponsor, and here it is. You're giving an investor multiple ways to give you money for your movie. And then, from there, they can come in as an investor or donate money to your film, which is great to have that sort of option. So always think of that. Always think of a fiscal sponsor when you're putting together your finance plan.
And it can be that not necessarily a film organization, but if you, especially for documentaries, but also some narrative projects, if maybe your project has to do with autism and you work with an autism nonprofit, they could be your fiscal sponsor. So it could be tied to the content of your project as well, right?
Yeah, that's 100%. Any nonprofit organization that exists out there can do this, can be a fiscal sponsor. So just know that. But there's other places that are in the film community that do this all the time, so they're more familiar with it, so it's a little easier. But you're right. The Southern Kansas City Autism Society could be designated a fiscal sponsor in that scenario. That absolutely could be a probable scenario for sure.
Awesome. Great. Oh, there's so much. You're doing so great. Thank you. We're coming down to the last couple things. And I want to, anybody that has questions, I didn't mention this earlier, we can put some questions in the chat. We are going to have a little bit of time for questions before we go into our breakout times, our networking time. But let's talk about my favorite part, because I have one of these sort of kind of coming. Labs. How can labs, what are labs and how can they help you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different labs. I've been fortunate. I've gone through a lot of labs, and they are really great. Labs are kind of a tastemaker for independent filmmakers, and I say that because I write a script, but who's to say how good it is, right? I think it's good. I gave it to my mom. She read it. She loved it. She thought it was good, but does the industry really share that same opinion? So labs, there's screenwriter labs, there's producer labs, there's director labs, there's editing labs, there's even composer labs. There's other types of filmmaker labs. There's animation labs, visual effects labs. Lots of organizations. George Lucas has one of the best. He's got Skywalker Sound Lab, which is a great thing. If you want to be a composer, it's in San Francisco. It's wonderful. And actually, that's another way you can get one of their composers from their lab, who's like a first-time composer, to donate their time and their music to your first movie if you want. Like, that's a whole thing. And then you just save money on a composer and getting original music, and you partnered with the Skywalker Sound Lab, which is awesome. So any of those labs you should apply to. Even if you're just a writer, apply to the director lab and the producer lab anyway, because you're a writer, you're trying to get this movie made, you're doing some producer things, right? You're getting it out there, so you should apply for the producer lab. Why not? Producers' roles are many. There's so many purposes, and as a writer, you should try to get them into those labs because you are a producer. You're your own producer. So I think writers' labs as a writer is a really important thing, but don't think that you can't try to apply for the producer's lab. Now, the director's lab, that's different. If you're a writer but you want to be a director, then by all means apply to the director's lab. There's a cinematographer, DP lab, that sort of thing. So find somebody as you're putting your movie together and as you're putting the pieces together and you're putting your crew together, find a DP and say, hey, I want you to apply to this lab. Sometimes there's grants that go along with it, but the reason you want to get into these labs, and there's lots of them, there's a couple here in Kansas City and Missouri statewide. There's, every state or every film commission across the country has some type of lab. The reason you want to get into those is because those are tastemakers. That's somebody that's going to look at your film and give you a look at your script and give you a stamp of approval. And having those kinds of laurels in your quiver when you're trying to pitch the movie and get recognition and get more people to sign on to your movie, being able to say that, oh, I got this into the screenwriters lab at the Missouri Film Commission, or I got this into the Sundance lab, or I got it into the IFP Gotham lab for the DP. All those things add up and it makes your film seem that more, it adds validity to your film. And like I said, the stamp of approval. And so having those things really helps. A lot of the labs will give you notes on your film and they'll do it for free because they want your film to be better and they believe in the story. And maybe you needed some work on your third act or whatnot. And so it's an invaluable thing to go through. You don't need to do it on every film, but doing it on your first or second one really is great. You learn a lot. You meet other people. You could be a screenwriter and you go to the lab. I think they're virtual right now, but if you are invited to go to one in New York or Chicago or even do the one in Missouri, you get together. Sometimes they partner you up as a writer with producers or with directors, and they get to get their opinions. And you might even leave the lab when it's all said and done with a director and a producer. Now you got the two biggest things you need for your film. So it's a great way to meet people. But really, the most important thing about it is getting that stamp of approval, getting validity from industry, executives or industry, people that are out there that'll look at your project and say, hey, this is great. And if you get denied from one, don't shrug your shoulders and throw your script in the trash. I've applied to hundreds of labs and I've gotten into 6, right? So you just got to keep on doing it. Sometimes the different labs are not right for you. If you have a horror script, sometimes, maybe the Sundance lab isn't the best for you. Fantastic Fest, which is a big horror film festival down in Austin, they've got a lab. That's where you should send your horror script. Don't send it to the mom and pop. I think there's a big family lab that's sponsored by Chicago Media Arts. Don't send your horror script to them. They're going to shut it and say this isn't for us. Because so do your research, do your due diligence on which lab you should go to. and because they are sort of catered to different genres sometimes. There's labs for, like we talked about, minority filmmakers, female filmmakers. So just make sure you're going to the right lab to give yourself the best chance. But that's a great thing to do. I highly recommend it. I've gotten a lot out of it.
And one of the things we talked about, the labs help you hone your pitch deck and your pitch to investors and tighten all of that up. And one of the programs that I am familiar with and we talked about is the Catalyst program at Sundance. And they really help you transition from a lab situation to getting investment to make the film. And we talked about how important pitch decks are. And I know, real quick, can you still show that pitch deck? We were going to show like a demo pitch deck. Talk about pitch deck.
Okay. Yeah, I sent it to you. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick without showing my whole screen. Otherwise, you're going to see my family.
You talk about them. I'll pull it up. I have it.
Okay, great. Yeah, so here's a great example. Sundance has a program. They've got filmmaker lab, director lab, screenwriter lab, cinematography lab. They have an actors lab. Sundance is kind of a great institution in that regard. And I've gone to this lab that's called Sundance Catalyst. And what they do is they pick 6 narrative feature films, scripted films, and they pick 6 documentary films that are in the very early stages. They invite you all up to the Sundance Resort in Park City, and you go into a room, a theater with 100 investors, and you get up on stage and you pitch your film to 100 investors. Everybody gets about 20 minutes to do it. And it's like a 3-day retreat. So there's other ways to interact with them, and there's ways for the investors to approach you and say, hey, really, really, love the hook on your film. Like, tell me more about it, or, whatever. And so, but Sundance, what they do is they don't want to just throw you up there on stage without being prepared. So there's lots of practice, weeks of you going in there, giving test pitches, pitching in front of different groups, lots of Q&A, lots of workshopping the pitch. But they also work with you on your pitch deck. In this sheet that we'll send out to everybody, I believe, is the 10 steps, 10 most common ways to finance your film. There's probably 20 ways to finance your film, but the 10 most common ways to finance your film is what we just went through today. And what we'll do, we'll add on that an addendum to sort of like, 5 or 6 different things that you want to have in your pitch deck. You want to have this not just for labs when you apply for it. They'll ask for it, like a lookbook or like a synopsis or a log line of your film or who your actors are. They will also ask for like a full-on investor deck like this. Sundance did this. We didn't do this on our own. They helped us. They told us where to put certain things and how to book it all together. And it was really helpful for us. But when you apply for grants, they'll ask for something like this. When you go to investors, they'll want to see something like this. When you apply for a fiscal sponsor, or when you want to go try and get a brand partner to do some brand entertainment, they'll ask for this. So like this pitch deck serves so many purposes. It actually helps you as a writer, even as a producer, or especially as a director, to get your head around what the visual style and look of your film is going to be. And this can be sent out to everybody, Andrea. There's nothing confidential. I own this, so this is one that I feel confident sharing with other people. But use it as a template. Follow it along. It's got your cast. It's got the log line, a synopsis. It's got director bio, producer bio. It's a sales tool, so you want to have as much information in there as possible, and you want to be able to sort of, give somebody something to walk away with, and they can look at this later, dive into it. They can share it with people, and it answers so many questions. Here, if you stop on this page, this is a great one. Kind of gives the financial summary. So I've talked about a finance plan, like what's my budget? How much money am I asking for? What am I willing to make the movie for and without? And what are the different investment levels on the right-hand side there on page 29? Investment levels, like I'm going to give you money, but what am I going to get in return? Am I going to get a credit, an on-screen credit? Well, the answer is yes. Like I'm going to get an associate producer if you only write me a check for $5,000. But if you write me a check for $50,000, you can be an executive producer. And usually with an executive producer or a higher level, you're giving them tickets to the screenings and you're giving them a DVD copy if they even do that anymore. you're sort of giving them a little bit extra. You allow them to come to set for a day or two. Red carpet or screenings of the premiere is usually the most common, or a set visit for the bigger investments, because you don't want 30 people that gave you $5,000 each showing up as an associate producers to set all on the same day. It's just too much to handle. So anyway, this is your finance plan. This is kind of like, here's what we're offering. This is what you get in return. This is what our plan is. But if you keep going, there's a marketing strategy, there's advertising strategy, there's what's called an impact strategy. Like if I want to get this movie, which is a cultural movie, onto college campuses or into museums for screening. We actually screened ours at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. at the new African American Museum. And there was a big, red carpet event, which was really fun to have your movie screened at the Smithsonian. It was really cool. But it was offered to us as sort of a way to, benefit the new museum, but it was a way that we saw it as an opportunity to market and advertise. And the New York Times did a little write-up because we got it into this museum at the Smithsonian. So there's always ways to get in there and get out of there. But it all comes back to this pitch deck or lookbook or whatever you want to call it, investor deck. And we have everything in here. And it just answers a lot of questions for you ahead of time. So it's good exercise to sort of put this all on paper and put it in an organized document like this. But it's also just paramount for any of your partners, investors, in-kind service providers, branded entertainment, your international sales agent will want to have this, your distributor. It's good to have this to send, because some distributors and some agents won't have time to read a whole script. But this gives a great little snapshot of what the movie is, who the actors are, who the key players are, what the synopsis is, and it's really invaluable. Like everybody on this call should have one of these for their film, without a doubt. And we sort of structured this based on somebody else who gave us a template that we sort of modeled it after. But I've used this, and I've shared this with lots of people. And, okay, so on this first page, look at here at the bottom. These are all the foundations and all the filmmaker labs that we got into. Sundance, Ford Foundation gave us a grant for this. Film Independent was our fiscal sponsor, or IFP was our fiscal sponsor. Film Independent was a big lab that we workshopped this for. The director did this, who was also the writer. I went through the Film Independent lab with this as also as a producer, and I went through the Sundance lab as a producer as well. And we took this to Catalyst. So 2 labs at Sundance, Ford Foundation, 2 labs at Film Independent, and then we used IFP Film Week, and so I guess there's about 8 labs that this little film went through, which was great, and everybody helped us along the way. Like the movie was vastly different and much more improved because of the labs, because we had this pitch deck, and because we had so many people helping us along the way. You can never do anything on your own. It's always good to get that kind of support. But those were the stamps of approval, that I was talking about.
And thank you for letting us share that. So we'll share this out to those of you who RSVP to the event. Real quick, let's take some questions before we network a little bit. Andrew, do you want to ask your question about completion bonds and gap financing?
All right, hi. To get loans based on tax credits or gap financing, do you need to have a completion bond in place? And what's the minimum to get a completion bond?
So there are lots of completion bond companies out there. The one I worked for, we wouldn't loan against anything that was under 2 million because there was just a lot of work and the fees would be too much for the filmmakers, so we just wouldn't touch it. There are other bonds out there. What usually dictates whether or not you need a bond is the lender. If it's a bank, like a large institution like a bank, and they're giving you a senior loan, kind of like a mortgage to your house, they're going to ask for it. So at any level, whether it's $10,000 loan, a $100,000 loan, or $10 million loan, they're going to say we need a completion bond. But if it's a private lender and they say, hey, you know what? Just assign the right. It's called a copyright mortgage assignment. So you're temporarily loaning the rights to your movie to the lender, and that lender has the rights to your film until they're getting paid back. So there is a CMA, a copyright mortgage assignment, And if it's a private lender and they're okay with it, they don't want a bond, because bonds really get involved and they're like a necessary evil. And some investors or some senior lenders don't want a bond. There's also that play. They can say, no, we don't need it. We believe you. We trust you, but we're going to want to be there every day. Or they'll say, we want a copyright mortgage assignment, a CMA, which temporarily assigns the rights to them until the movie's made, and then they'll release the rights back to you. So those are two good options.
Awesome. Great. Daniel, you had a question about WeFunder. Do you know about that, Justin? It's
I mean, there's, 100 of these GoFundMe, Kickstarter, Indiegogo types. I've only heard of WeFunder. I don't have direct experience with it, but go ahead with your question. Was that it? Have I heard of it, or if it's good? No, there's been so many that have popped up, so I can't say what one is better than the other. Kickstarter is the largest. Indiegogo is more film friendly. Seed and Spark has high fees, but they're pretty good at networking. So just WeFunder could be a good one. And some of these others could be dinosaurs, Friendster was the coolest place to have your photo in your profile, and then it went under, and now I don't even think it exists anymore. Facebook and MySpace. Well, MySpace went under too. So you just have to be, these things change, the market's changing, the places to go raise money on these crowdfunding sources changes. So just make sure you're using the right tools.
So Sean wants you, we all want to look we want you to look in your crystal ball and talk to us about the future of pre-sales with the streaming situation the way it is.
Yeah, well, even with what happened is, oh, go ahead. Was there a question?
Yeah, sorry. My question was actually just like looking backwards in time, how you think Netflix and Amazon acquiring content, creating content impacted the pre-sales market.
Yeah. Well, so kind of like there's two parts to that. I actually just gave an interview on this about 6 months ago, because thank goodness streamers are here, right? Like if the coronavirus hit 5-6 years ago, before like Netflix really became what it is, and Amazon and Apple and Vudu and all these new services that are streamers, like movies just would have shut down, and we would have been hoping and praying that HBO would have bought my film at a festival or something, because that was it. There was just cable network. I think Netflix was really still doing the DVDs by mail, but that might have shut down. It was really kind of a scary thing. So thank goodness there was streamers to sort of pick up the slack from movie theaters being shut down. And so I actually, a lot of European distributors hate Netflix. They actually shut it down. Netflix was trying to turn Europe into one territory. Right now, a lot of foreign sales is predicated on being able to sell the 45 different countries in Europe that make up Central Europe. They were trying to say it's all just one territory. So I would just sell Europe for a price instead of individually knocking out each of those territories. But a lot of those countries, like France, for example, said, no, we're our own. We're not even allowing Netflix in our country. That's changed a little bit, but I think it's helped. It's just added competition. And that it actually, as a filmmaker, it's healthy, right? Because now I've got not just the 6 major studios that sort of guarded Hollywood for 50 or even 100 years. Like you could only distribute your movie through one of those 6. So there was 12 or 20 of them. Now there's hundreds of places to take your film and get your film seen by everybody. So streaming is only a good thing. There's a place for everybody now. It did hurt the foreign sales market a little bit, because they are trying to get people to sort of treat Latin America as one territory, or treat Europe as one territory versus breaking it up into 130 territories. So it's kind of a yes and no. If you talk to a sales agent, they'll say that they hate it because they make money on all the territories that they sell. They don't want to just sell 5 territories or 5 continents. They want to sell all the countries within each continent. So, but I think as a filmmaker, it's a good thing. Streaming is a good thing, because yes, I want my movie on the big screen, and that's hard to do, and it's hard to break through there. But now I can put it on, 100 different streamers, and I can shop it around and get the best price for it. I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but it's a good thing, I think.
It does, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us with this today.
Cool. Okay, one more. Michael, do you want to ask him about fundraising versus investors, kind of how that balance works?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Justin. Thank you so much. This has been exactly what I've needed. My question is basically, we're in the process of trying to raise money for a $150,000 low budget feature here in New York. And we are just trying to structure our plan. The deck that you just showed is going to be unbelievably helpful. So thank you. I'll now know what to send potential investors. But I'm curious how you would go about deciding how much to put the fundraiser for. Should we kind of see what our potential investors can pledge to us first? Because I've seen fundraisers that appear to be going for the whole thing for like $100,000. And then I've seen some that think they can only raise 20,000. And I think, oh, they must have income coming from somewhere else. So we're just trying to figure out how to like organize our plan here when it comes to the investor side and then the launch of our Seed and Spark.
Yeah, so Seed and Spark's great. So that's a great platform to be on. I would not go for the whole thing because the worst thing that can happen when you're fundraising on a Seed and Spark or a Kickstarter type platform is not reaching your goal. You want to make it look like it's so wildly successful. Everybody's putting money into this. So be reasonable with yourself. You're not going to raise 150,000 through that one format, right? That one platform. So I would set your goal at like 10,000. You can always raise it later. It's tougher to lower it. So set your goals low because you want to reach them quickly. So I would do 10,000, and you might even find some investors that'll match the money you raise. So, hey, Mr. Investor, if I raised 25,000 through GoFundMe, will you match that 25,000? All of a sudden I got 50. And maybe they'll even come in at the tail end and put it in through your Seed and Spark. So then it really looks like you kickstarted or you overachieved. You want to overachieve. So I would set your goal to like 10, 15, or 20. You know your movie better than I do, but you want to reach the goal and you want to reach it quickly. You don't want this thing to go, 30 days, 60 days, and you don't have all the money there. So, send me the link too when you're ready. I'll contribute somehow, shape or form. But if you're in New York, there's a lot of great film markets. Film labs there. You should definitely be applying to those. Tribeca, IFP, which is now Gotham. Look into this, but Cine Reach is another. Like, there's a dozen or so. A24's got one now. I would just keep looking at them and apply to them because there's a lot of great. New York is a great film community. Always has been. It even predates Hollywood. So I would stay after it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Very cool. One last thing. I know I said that was the last one, but Shelley had asked, do you work with filmmakers? Do you offer a service to where you help fundraise for films and take a percentage or?
I have done that in the past. It's a lot of work. I'll be honest. I've got a couple of my own movies I'm trying to get pushed off the ground right now. So it is a service. I might not be the right person right now. Certainly happy to consider it. But I will tell you this, I'm not the right person to help with the GoFundMe or, WeFunder or Indiegogo, Kickstarter. There are other producers, fundraising producers out there that are much better at that. They're more tapped into that sort of community and they know how to do it. I tried to do it on my own for a couple movies. It's a lot of work. It's a full-time job. You got to be doing it every single day. You got to hit up, the TikToks, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, constantly just plowing through it, updating people and everybody. You almost want to be a nuisance until people give you money and emails, left and right to everybody and everybody, and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of sweat equity you got to put into it. Just know that's what it takes to get the money. And I don't have the time to do that right now, but there are people at it. Even if I did have the time, I would suggest there's other people that are much, much better at it than I am.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm echoing on there in the chat. I don't know if you can see lots of people thanking you and telling you that it was awesome information, and it is awesome information. So thanks everybody. We do want to go in. Justin, are you able to stick with us for a little bit for the networking time?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, another 30 minutes. Absolutely. For sure.
So we're going to break into, and Steph is going to help do this. We're going to break into our first breakout room, and anybody that doesn't want to do the networking part can hop off now. And then we're going to break in and meet new friends. And this is one of my favorite parts. I keep saying that about this is meeting new people across the state and connecting, because it is collaborative. All of the things we've talked about, it's multiple people have to make this happen. So if you're ready, we're going to go into our first breakout rooms. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Did we go into a room? Are we in a
Are
room?
we all still in the same room?
I think so.
I'm
Okay,
here.
That's okay.
Yep, I think everybody's still here. Let's try that again. And hey, Steph, can you stop recording too? That might be affecting it.
There's only 15 people, right? Oh, never
Oh,
mind.
okay. Maybe we made big groups. That's cool too. Hi, awesome.
Oh, but I was just invited to should I click join?
Yes, if you see a
Okay.
join on your screen, click join.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Okay.
we're all in here, which is fine. And
I
we'll-
was in one, but I was there by myself, so I just left the room.
Awesome. Oh, well, let's go. Let's do some quick introductions. Lori, I know you're not on camera, but you want to introduce yourself? Oh, did we lose her? Oh, something happened.
And I think you can stop recording now.